Thank you for clicking on this video. Welcome to episode number 5 in a series where we are building, start to finish, this custom Warmoth short scale bass with a double reverse P and a reverse headstock. Here's the episode you've all been waiting for. We'll finally get to hear what this bass sounds like with the Tonerider Duke pickups installed. Let's go. These pickups are from a company called Tonerider. They make 2 different precision style pickup lines. The first one's called the Classic P, which I've featured in another video. This one is called the Duke. Now this pickup set is wound for a hotter output and for more lows. Alright, so the purpose of this video is to demonstrate how versatile and how many different sounds you can get from this bass with the double reverse P configuration. Let's start with just a neck pickup, nothing from the bridge, and let's start with the tone all the way up. Let's turn the tone knob down just a smidge, just to take a little bit of the clack away. Let's roll that tone knob down just a little bit more, so we're now kind of in around that 75% point. Let's roll the tone knob back just a little bit more. So we're now kind of around that 50% mark. Let's roll that tone up back even more. Let's roll it back even more, so we're now kind of in that 25% range. So everything you just heard was from the front neck P pickup soloed. Let's now hear both pickups together, kind of jazz bass style. So both pickups together, both volumes, all the way up. Let's roll that tone pod all the way up to 100% again, wide open. Now let's try to get that kind of Spectre PJ active type sound. Both pickups all the way up, tone still all the way up. Let's roll that tone knob back just a little bit, just to get rid of a little bit of that clack. Now let's roll the tone knob back to about 50%. Let's roll the tone knob back just a little bit more. So we're kind of in that 35-40% range. So if I were doing my usual singer-songwriter gig, in that gig, you just want to provide some bottom, the harmonic group notes, and otherwise stay out of the way. And this sound I think will work quite well for that. Let's roll the tone knob back even more. It's getting pretty woolly. Still both pickups. And let's try to go after that deep, subby reggae type sound. Let's now just solo the bridge P pickup. Turn the neck all the way off, backs all the way up. Let's put the tone knob around 50% or so. Can it do harmonics, you are asking? Let's find out. Let's roll the tone knob up just a little bit more, get a little more highs, just soloing the bridge pickup. Can a solo? Let's find out. Bridge pickup. We'll roll that tone knob up just a little bit more. So now we're about 70-ish%. Well, hopefully from that demonstration, you can appreciate that this short scale base with the double reverse P is capable of a huge and wide variety of different sounds, from varying the tone knob and where you pluck and your right hand positioning. You can get a variety of different tones. All right, so let's review my own work. Now, it's pretty hard to be truly objective when it comes to things you've kind of built and created yourself, but I think I can talk about the positives and things that I can improve upon. So let's start with the fit and the finish. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know I'm kind of really picky about neck pockets, but this neck pocket is appropriately tight. It's not so tight that it's kind of squishing the finish on the neck. I think this neck pocket is very well made, and I think that goes to the CNC tolerances over at Warmoth. So have a look at these photos here. In terms of the neck, the frets and the fret leveling has been done beautifully at Warmoth. I had nothing to do with the fretwork. Similarly, the nut, the alignment is perfect, and the nut height has been cut, for me, perfectly. There's nothing I need to do to this nut at all. Now, in terms of the finish, I really enjoy the texture and the feel from this Osmo PolyX finish. And it feels more like fine furniture. Not the sticky high gloss kind, but like the expensive fine furniture kind. It feels much more like that than it does a production off-the-shelf guitar. What I will say, and if I were building this for someone else, or if I were to build another one, foreshadowing there, I think I would put a third layer of Osmo on this. As demonstrated in the previous episode, I only put 2 coats. And it's fine, but I think just for extra protection, I would put 3. I think 2 is more than adequate for a roasted maple neck, which doesn't need finish at all. But for the body, I would put 3 coats of Osmo on. Now, in terms of the color and the staining job, my original intention was more of a kind of a turquoise teal type hue. So after applying the Osmo, which does add a kind of a bit of a yellowing amber tint to everything you put it on, the color did turn out a little more emerald green than turquoise. Now, it's still a cool color, but I think you need to know that going in, that the Osmo will darken the color and add a bit of a yellow amber tint to whatever you put it on. Now, in terms of how well it's stained, this was done using the pretty off-the-shelf, very accessible Saman water-based stain. And I think overall it turned out all right. The problem I ran into is I had a few spots here, like on the back, you can see this. There are a few spots that just turned out kind of blotchier and darker than others. And on the top, you can see like there's a darker area here and here by the controls. And that's just a nature of the wood. And I don't think it has much to do with the stain. Now, alder does that. That is it's a piece of wood. It was previously a living organic material. So there is going to be kind of variation on that. But that's just something to be aware of. Now, this color scheme has kind of now taken on a bit of a kind of an MTD Norm Stockton type vibe to it, just in terms of color scheme. And I looked those up, and there are a few pictures where the older body on that MTD has some blotchiness too. So I'll let you have a look here. Looking at those photos and comparing that to how I've stained this alder body, I don't feel quite so bad about some of the darker blotchy spots on mine. It does add some character, but if you're used to seeing perfectly even kind of paint jobs, then some of the uneven color on a colored stain depending on what you're used to looking at, may or may not affect your eyes. Now, weight and balance are really, really important things. So before assembly, I weighed the body by itself, and that came in at 3 pounds and 12 ounces. Fully assembled, this bass weighed in at 7 pounds and 7 ounces. And overall, it balances really, really well on the lap. It's comfortable to play. All the dimensions are in the right spot. And unlike a jazz bass, which does have an extra offset lower belt here, I find this doesn't catch on like the edge of the chair or my thigh or the couch in a way that a J bass type body can. This is very comfortable to play. So I'm quite happy with that. Now, let's talk about the balance of the bass on a strap. These are Dunlop strap pins that I installed, and I put them in pretty typical standard spots for this demonstration. So let's put it on my shoulder. No hands. Jiggle around a little bit. I think this balances pretty well. Now, it's pretty rare for me to play with the strap standing up these days, but if you're building one for yourself, I think the standard strap positions for this wood recipe balances pretty well. Now let's talk about the tone that I'm getting from these Tonerider, the Duke type pickups. First of all, what I will say is, to my ear, the reverse P definitely makes the E and A string sound different. Now, whether or not it actually sounds tighter or better, I think is a very subjective, but I do think it sounds different, and there's the mid-range presence on the E and A strings are different. And that's really apparent when you're doing this sound. It's much more difficult to get that kind of sound with a traditional P position. So I do think that's better. Having two pickups really adds to the versatility that this bass can have. Now, these Tonerider, the Duke pickups, were wound a little hotter for extra output and extra beefy low end. And I think compared to the classic P that I have in one of my other basses, I think that's true. I don't find it significantly louder than the classic P, so it's not a night and day difference like a passive or an active bass type comparison would have. But there's definitely more lows and there's more low mids. And I think as a result of that, the pickup sounds beefier and fatter in the low end. But as a compromise, I think you lose some of the mid-range honk and mid-range nose more associated with especially the neck P-style pickup. And I think that's just a character of having overwhelmed the pickup. Similarly, it does sound a little more compressed than the classic P. So in terms of dynamic range, it sounds a little bit more squished than a traditional P or the classic P from Tonerider. However, for a short scale bass, provided you're not after a super zingy, bright sound, I think these sound very kind of pre-EQ'd in a very pleasant way. So I don't think you need to do an awful lot to this bass in post-production to get it to sound right and to sit right with other instruments. I think the pre-EQ'd overall character in the sound is very pleasant to listen to. Even the bridge pickup alone, it doesn't have that kind of nasty, honky, high mid peak that a single coil J would have. Having said that, however, what I do think the Duke pickups lack is a growly mid-range. So even with both pickups up and the tone knob all the way up, it just doesn't growl as in the same way that something like a Warwick would. Now, I think that again is a characteristic of having overwound this pickup, so it doesn't sound like that traditional honky P bass mid range. The other thing, and potentially a disadvantage to these pickups, is I think most of the tones that I like are kind of in that tone knob at 40-50% and higher. I think once you go below 40%, slightly less than halfway on this tone sweep, the sounds start to get a little woolly and a little muddy. And again, I think that's just, these pickups are inherently lacking some of that mid-range honk. So you start losing some of that note clarity and note definition with the tone knob closer to zero, with the tone knob between 0 and 50. So I think this part really depends on what type of sound you're after. If you're after a super articulate piano type tone, I don't think these pickups are going to be for you. But if you're looking for a tone that, right out of the box just sounds right, but on the brighter side and with a tone knob between 50 to 100, then I think these are very pleasant to listen to. Overall, I think this build is a success. I think the combination of the reverse P, having two of them, and a thinner finish on the body, I think results in a very resonant sounding bass. This bass was pretty easy to set up, if I am to be honest with you, and I didn't really need to spend a lot of time off camera doing it. The only thing I did off camera was the bridge pickup needed an extra piece of thin foam underneath both pickups just to get the height correct. But otherwise, I didn't do anything else to this bass that you didn't see in the previous episode. I think it plays really, really well. It's very comfortable. And now it actually highlights the, not so good things about my playing and my technique. So if anything, it's a bass that is, is limited by me, the operator, and not that the bass is just incapable of doing something. So it does inspire me to practice and get better at doing some things that I do. So I think from that vantage point, this bass is very inspiring for me to play. I think for the future, what I would like to do is I would like to build a variant or a variation of this bass that has a more growly mid-range. And in my brain, I'm trying to think of what things in the recipe I need to change in order to get that growly mid-range. I'm not necessarily looking for a brighter sound, because what I'm naturally after is actually a slightly darker sound that is not teeth chattering in terms of bright and zinginess, but I still want articulation and I want clarity. And that's hard to achieve. This gets me very, very close to that. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. In the next episode coming up, I'm going to compare a double P setup compared to my short scale jazz basses. Now I have these two basses set up to do slightly different things. I have the Fender set up to do more of a kind of a vintage inspired, if you will, more traditional J bass type tone. And then I have the Atelier set up to do a more modern type J bass tone. So stay tuned for that one. Thanks so much for watching this one. Catch you next time. Peace.